From A Dance with Dragons, the Kingbreaker chapter. Even after all these years, Sir Barristan could still recall Ashara's smile, the sound of her laughter. He had only to close his eyes to see her, with her long, dark hair tumbling about her shoulders, and those haunting purple eyes. To go forward with Martin, we have to go back. Who is Ashara Dayne? Her fit in our story is a puzzle. Ashara is obviously important and a secret Martin is purposefully withholding from us. She's connected to the Tower of Joy, and Jon, and to Daenerys. Again, let's look at the Kingbreaker chapter. Consider what Sir Barristan thinks in the following quote. He thinks, Daenerys has the same eyes. Sometimes when the queen looked at him, he felt as if he were looking at Ashara's daughter. Okay, Ashara has Targaryen eyes but Baratheon hair. So whose child is she, and why is she in House Dayne? Hands off the thumbs down button. Coconut notions and a misty rain of facts are incoming. Ashara is Queen Rhaella Targaryen and Steffon Baratheon's daughter, and she was hidden in House Dayne to protect her from Mad King AorS.
I don't do omniscient narrative. In other words, I'm not telling these from the viewpoint of whatever god. So when you say the fire speaks back, well, Varys says the fire speaks back when he's telling the story, which is then being retold, and it's 30 years later. You might tell a story, something happened to you 20 years ago, and then if I looked at a time machine, would it be exactly what you remember, or would time and memory have colored things? I want people to try to kind of think about things.
Okay, I'm going to explain the specific things Martin has told us in the text and how it's possible and maybe likely for Rhaella and Steffon to have a child. But first, I want to talk about the hair. Ashara is known for her dark hair. Baratheon hair is dominant. It's basically the whole surface story of the Game of Thrones book. We see this same idea and this hair story play out throughout George's A Song of Ice and Fire universe. For those watching House of the Dragon, they're familiar with the queen who never was, Rhaenys Targaryen. In Martin's later writings, Rhaenys' hair is black and her eyes lilac, though this imagery is not carried into hot DTV. Her father was Aemon Targaryen, son of Jaehaerys I, and her mother was Jocelyn Baratheon. Jocelyn, by the way, is described in Fire and Blood as, quote, long-legged, full-breasted, with thick, straight hair, black as a raven's wing. And Jocelyn herself is basically from the same genetic mix, probably. Her father was Rhaegar Baratheon, and her mother was Alyssa of Valyria. Alyssa had the silvery hair and purple eyes of the other Valyrians. And interestingly, and possibly for multiple reasons, when she married Lord Rhaegar, she wore a great cloak with both the three-headed dragon and the Valyrian silver seahorse. But back to Rhaenys, and to quote from Fire and Blood, Rhaenys had the black hair of her Baratheon mother and the pale violet eyes of her Targaryen father. So we have this reoccurring genetic-based theme of beauty, black hair, purple eyes when we cross a Valyrian with a Baratheon. And I think this is where George is asking us to look with Ashara. Okay, hear me out in the upcoming section. There are a lot of facts that need to be taken together and considered as a whole. Westeros.org has Ashara being born between 260 AC and 269 AC. For reference, Rhaegar was born to Rhaella in 259. Rhaella had many miscarriages and stillbirths between 263 and 271. One of the stillbirths received a name, but we don't know much about the baby. The only things we know come from World of Ice and Fire. The given name was Shaena. The year was 267, and the birth came in King's Landing. Interestingly, the birth came when AorS, young Rhaegar, and half the court were somewhat unusually in the Westerlands. They were there for an extended period relating to the death of Tywin Lannister's father, Tytos. In the years that followed Tytos' death, we're told AorS became paranoid and overly suspicious that Rhaella was unfaithful and that he crazily believed his many dead children were actually bastards. Of course, this is basically the Maester's telling of the tale, so there's good cause to question some of the details and nuances that were provided. We know they are biased and wrong in a few other places. And at first glance, we just assume Ares was the Mad King we know and love when he confined Rhaella to Maegor's Holdfast in 270 AC and had two Septa sleep with her every night. But maybe, just maybe, paranoids have enemies too. Could there be some truth to what Ares believed? George's characters are complex, and the general perception of them so often proves to be incorrect on closer inspection. We know Rhaella did not want to marry Ares. There was talk of her and a young landed knight from the Stormlands. That knight was very good attorney, supposedly. Some think this is Sir Bonifer Hasty, but I think it's pretty clear who it actually was. And I think Jamie and Bonifer are going to discuss Rhaella to clear things up. But that is a bold and coconut notion for another day. We're here today looking for a Baratheon she may have grown to love as well. Think back to your high school days and your group of friends. Were there ever times when there were, for lack of a better explanation, love triangles or maybe changing of pairs? We know all about Aerys, Joanna, and Tywin Lannister. But what about Aerys, Rhaella, and Steffon Baratheon? Let's take a look at the timeline and fit together the group around Aerys and his teens. For starters, Steffon is Aerys and Rhaella's cousin, and Steffon's father was hand to Rhaella and Aerys' father. Aerys was likely close to Steffon in the beginning. From the World of Ice and Fire comes this passage, among others. As a boy, Tywin Lannister had served as a royal page at King's Landing. He and Prince Aerys, together with a younger page, the prince's cousin, Steffon Baratheon of Storm's End, become inseparable. During the War of the Nine Penny Kings, the three friends had fought together, Tywin as a new-made knight, Steffon and Prince Aerys as squires. Okay, it's a little confusing, but I think part of the War of the Nine Penny Kings was in 257 AC. The main part of the war could have been in 260. Anyway, Aerys returns and marries Rhaella in 258, and Rhaegar is born in 259. It's thought that Rhaella would have been 13 at her oldest at the time of her vows. Rhaella's mother, whose name was Shaena, was secretly wed at 14. So I guess this age is not that crazy for George. But maybe more importantly, when we think about Shaena, it's a pretty close anagram for Ashara in my mind. And even more importantly, George always puts actual meanings into his name choices. He specifically talked about the importance he places on choosing the right name for each character. I think maybe my favorite is Lysa, which is connected to madness and the virus that causes rabies. It makes me chuckle. Anyway, lightning continues to strike, but the misty rain is also flooding our river. What does the name Shaena mean? Say you were to Google it. It's well known to mean beautiful in Yiddish. And what is Ashara's number one trait? Just think about it. Maybe Ashara is Shaena. As kind of a penultimate clue, one that's a little BS, I'll admit, let's talk about how George uses character pantomimes, item iconology, and wordplay such as double entendres to light up his writing and give us a devious plot clue. There are many examples. Sometimes they're little crude jokes. I like one when Rob discusses attacking Moat Caitlin. You cannot mean to attack up the causeway, said Glover. The approaches are too narrow. No one has ever taken the moat. Then Rob says, but if we attack simultaneously and take the Iron Men in the rear, while they're beating off, my main thrust up the causeway, then we have a chance. Okay, moving on from the causeway to the little joke I think George may be inserting related to today's coconut notion. We don't know much really about Steffon Baratheon, nothing detailed at all, but we do interestingly get Cersei's thoughts on his supposedly crazy choice of Cassandra Estermount as his wife. From Feast, the Estermonts were her goodkin through Robert, whose father, Steffon, had taken one of them to wife in what must have been a fit of lust or madness. Okay, I'm saying it's the latter. It's the fit of madness when AorS was finally tired of what he knew must be afoot between his childhood friend Steffon and his wife Rhaella. And last and more meaningfully, let's consider the genetics of Ice and Fire. George is literally packing the whole story, and actually all of his stories, with genetics. You just can't seriously deny it. It's everywhere. Brienne has something like Dwyer syndrome. Robin Aaron has pectus excavatum, which is a genetic deformity. There's Meleys the monstrous with his dead conjoined twin on his shoulder. It's everywhere. However, today I want to talk about Sweet Robin's Dragon X gene theory. Put simply, We're talking about the notion that there's something special in the Valyrian genetics that is carried on the X chromosomes. Sweet Robin has a whole series here on YouTube, and you can search Genetics of Dragons and War, where you can get the details from the horse's mouth. Anyway, it's a recessive gene that, if given a single instance in either a female or a male, allows for dragon binding and riding. But when present in an individual twice, called double dragon X, it allows for dragon egg hatching. This double dragon is mostly seen in females, obviously, but it's also possible in a genetic chimera like Tyrion, or one with Klinefelter syndrome, like Varys. And if we think about passing along this X chromosome gene, Steffon Baratheon is so interesting. His mother is Rhaella Targaryen. Rhaelle is Rhaella's aunt. She's a sister to both Rhaella's parents, to put it exactly. So she has the exact same special genetics as Jaehaerys and Shaena. We talked about Shaena earlier. And if Steffon did get the special X gene from his mother, he can only pass it to a daughter. Robert, Stannis, and Renly are out of luck. But if Steffon does have a daughter, say with a known to be unfaithful Targaryen female, one that he basically grew up with, he can pass the special gene to that child. And that daughter would, of course, have black hair and purple eyes that we see in the other crossings between the Targaryens and the Baratheons. Think about it. Shaena and Jaehaerys have Rhaella. She may or may not have the special X gene. Rhaelle and Ormond have Steffon. He may or may not have the special. Rhaella and Steffon have Ashara. She likely has at least one special, though I do think likely only one, as we have not had a dragon hatching until Dany. When we think back to what Barristan told us at the beginning, we know Dany is related to Ashara. Again, Barristan thinks Daenerys has the same eyes. Sometimes when the queen looked at him, he felt as if he were looking at Ashara's daughter. And when we think about Dany's name, Dayne-heiress, it just seems more likely George is telling us that she is Ashara's daughter rather than her sister. We definitely still need to talk about how Sir Barristan may have an inside look at 3 generations of Targaryen Dragon X gene carriers. Think about it. He serviced Rhaella, lusted for Ashara, and is Queensguard for Daenerys. We also need to quickly visit what Jaime may already know and what he saw during the Targaryen flight from King's Landing, and what he may learn in Winds from our Patsy Bonifer Hasty. We need to think about how exactly would this all fit into the prophecies. But importantly, we have to talk about my coconut notion regarding Dany being fireproof in the books. Of course, you know I'm wrong about that, but I've promised a few friends to try to convince them. Anyway, in the meantime, Jeopardy proved who Tyrion's dad was. From the shoulders of giants.